Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about making decisions, and particularly about the right mindset for making important or costly decisions. And as part of this summer no Bowtie series, I will use Audiophilia as a great example. Okay, many of you have found yourselves in a very similar situation. Imagine a relatively small group of audiophiles between, say, 6 and 12 people are gathered at our house and we're listening to music. Sometimes we try to compare two different audio devices, which is always a lot of fun. And never ever have I seen such a gathering without someone bringing one or more pairs of cables to the whole meeting. And the idea was that we switch those cables, listen attentively, and try to figure out whether we heard any difference. These could be, I've already listed it at one of the previous podcasts, power cables, interconnect cables connecting various audio devices, or speaker cables. Anyway, to tell the truth, I'm not an easily impressionable person. Moreover, typically I prefer to use my critical thinking and independent decision making. That's just kind of my mantra for every day. But suddenly, when everyone around you starts saying that they do hear the difference, very often, I heard something. I'm not sure what exactly. I heard something myself. So I was under the impression that yes, something has happened. Something is different, however weird it sounds. Well, I've already told everyone that I'm not a big believer in cables and rolling or switching them. Science points to the fact that their overall influence on the sound of a system is absolutely negligible. And we're not talking about cutting-edge science. It's purely the electromagnetic theory, applied radio engineering, and acoustics. All of these are very well established. Okay, in the 19th century, which was not too long ago, the common satirical take on the idealistic approach was something like that. If the facts contradict the theory, so much worse for the facts. Well, sounds funny, but it's an adequate summary for things that were happening 200 years ago. Well, it has all changed in the 20th century. As the great physicist Richard Feynman has said, if the theory contradicts a well-staged experiment or commonly known observations, this theory is wrong. With this in mind, I decided to stage an experiment. So, I've allocated a discretionary budget for myself, specifically for testing those questionable improvements and gadgets for the cases when I thought that I heard something. Maybe I was influenced by this collective semi-conscious. Well, you can see some of the examples, some of these gadgets in the photographs. These Kubala Sosna speaker cables are thicker than a garden hose. They're even hard to bend and connect to speakers. And believe it or not, they cost more than $10,000 when new. These very nice and sturdy XLR interconnects from Audience, they just connect my digital to analog converter to the amplifier. And they're good, but they cost thousands of dollars. Finally, those solid and thick power cables, they're just power cables, also cost thousands of dollars. In the company of fellow audiophiles, I really felt like I thought some difference in sound, despite all my theoretical background and beliefs. Anyway, when left to my own devices, pun intended, at home, with a calm mind, no haste, listening at my own pace, and without the influence of audiophiles sitting all around me, that was the critical moment when suddenly the carriage was gradually turning into a pumpkin. For the life of me, I could no longer hear any difference in sound quality between those ultra-glitzy, ultra-fancy, ultra-expensive cables and the regular, sanely priced, no-nonsense, non-glitzy, but very well-made alternatives. You see some of these alternatives in the photo. Blue Jeans speaker cables are welded, they have lockable bananas, and they're great. Mogami interconnect cables are the gold standard for the whole audio recording industry, widely used in recording studios. Finally, if you somehow aesthetically are not satisfied with the power cord coming with your device, you can buy a thicker and more impressive one on Amazon for anything between $50 and $80. The whole set that you see here in the photograph doesn't cost thousands. It costs maybe $200 to $300 overall. And it sounds exactly the same as far as you are not being under the influence. And by that, I do not mean substances, but rather the collective unconscious and all the emotions running high, all the cool and glitzy cables shining there, and obviously they look more impressive and all that stuff. I would like to conclude this audiophile related piece with another quotation from the great modern audio engineer and designer Bruno Putzes. He says that if your system changes its sound signature when you switch cables, it simply means that something is wrong with your system, especially with power supplies. Well, one piece of good news is that it means that my system is good. It sounds solid, and that's why it's not affected by any switching in cables. From another hand, I've spent a ton of money and now own a lot of glitzy, severely overpriced audiophile trinkets. Sounds familiar? Because it is. How many times did we make those heat-of-the-moment decisions being under the influence? How many times did the big corporate bosses of huge corporations make those decisions that were absolutely, obviously stupid, once again, being under the influence? But these were not the substances. These were popular hype, commonly shared illusions, and the common unconscious when you're affected by the crowd around you. Anyway, in all these cases, the results were exactly the same. It's disillusionment and subsequent inevitable buyer's remorse. The rule of thumb I'm trying to follow in my personal and business life is very simple. Never make heat-of-the-moment decisions. Take a break. Sleep on it. And then ponder over the whole thing once again, while alone, in a calm and rested state, with no external influence and no distracting factors. After considering all real-life use scenarios, while being fully concentrated on the matter, you may no longer pursue the purchase of this fancy shore house or the deployment of an equally fancy AI-based system that, according to the publisher, does everything for you and completely eliminates the need for human mental faculties. In other words, when coming across a very cool idea or project, before making a decision, make sure you keep your cool. All the best of luck.